The marketplace of Korath Prime was alive with noise and laughter. Aliens of every shape and size crowded into the grand auction hall, their voices mixing into a storm of sound. The stage at the center glowed under harsh white lights, and cages of living beings lined the sides. Traders shouted prices, and rich buyers waved their hands, eager to own new servants, workers, or even pets. But the biggest laughter erupted when the guards dragged a small cage onto the stage. Inside sat a girl, but not a normal one. She was an alien child, no taller than a human's waist. Her skin glimmered pale silver, her hair thin and white like moonlight, and her giant eyes shimmered with sadness. She hugged her knees tightly, trying to make herself smaller as the crowd erupted in cruel jokes. "She's too small. What will anyone do with her?" shouted one alien with green scales. "Maybe use her as a toy for their pet," another laughed. "Not worth even a single coin," added a third, and the crowd roared in agreement. The auctioneer, a tall insect-like being with glittering wings, raised his voice. "Behold, a rare creature, weak and useless, the last of her kind perhaps. Who will bid?" The crowd jeered louder, some throwing scraps of food toward the stage. The tiny alien girl flinched each time something hit the bars of her cage. Her shoulders shook, but she made no sound. Tears threatened in her wide eyes, yet she refused to cry. She had cried too many times before, and no one ever cared. The auctioneer tried again. "1 credit. Who will start at 1 credit?" Laughter exploded across the hall. No hands rose, no voices answered. "1 credit for a worthless bug?" someone shouted, and the audience laughed harder. "She is a waste of space." Another mocked. The girl lowered her head, her tiny hands trembling. She knew this was her fate. No one wanted her. No one ever would. The auctioneer's voice grew desperate. "Fine then, 1/2 a credit. Who will take her for half?" Still no one moved. The crowd loved the humiliation too much. They laughed at the girl, at the auctioneer, at the very idea of her value. And then, in the middle of all that noise, silence began to spread. At the back of the hall, a figure rose slowly from his seat. A human man. He was tall, dressed in worn clothes from many travels, a scar across his cheek telling of battles long past. His face was calm, unreadable, but his eyes locked onto the girl's trembling form. He lifted his arm. His hand rose into the air. "I'll take her," he said, his voice strong and steady. The crowd froze. Laughter died in their throats. Every alien head turned to stare at the human. "What?" the auctioneer asked, confused. "I'll take her," the man repeated, his hand never lowering. The audience burst into chaos. "Is he insane? She's worthless. Humans must be desperate." Some laughed again, others whispered in disbelief, but all eyes were now on the human. The auctioneer, seeing a chance to regain control, smirked. "Very well then. The human bids 1 credit. Do I hear 2? No one answered. They were too shocked, too amused. 1 credit. Going once. Going twice. The insect-like auctioneer slammed his clawed hand down. "Sold. To the human." The hall erupted again in mocking laughter, but now it carried a sharper edge. Not at the girl anymore, but at the human who dared to claim her. The girl lifted her head slowly. Her wide silver eyes met his. She had expected cruelty, another master who would hurt her or throw her away. But in his gaze she saw something strange. Not pity, not disgust. Something else. Something she could not name. The guards unlocked her cage. She stumbled out, weak and afraid, staring at the floor. The human walked forward, his steps firm and quiet. He removed his cloak and wrapped it around her tiny frame. The crowd booed, shouted insults, laughed louder than ever, but the human did not flinch. He turned, holding the girl close, and began to walk toward the exit. From the shadows, a group of rough-looking aliens stepped into his path. Their voices were low and dangerous. "She's not worth it, human. Give her to us instead." The human stopped. His hand did not fall. He tightened his grip around the girl, his eyes cold and sharp. The crowd hushed, sensing something was about to happen, and the little alien girl wrapped in his cloak whispered in a trembling voice, "Why? Why would you buy me?" But the man gave no answer. He only kept walking, his hand still raised, never once lowering it. The crowd had expected the human to stumble, to laugh, or even to change his mind. But as he wrapped his cloak around the trembling alien girl and turned toward the exit, his steps were steady, his face unreadable. The laughter rose again, louder than before. Aliens slapped their knees, shouted insults, and pointed at him as if he were the true joke of the auction. Look at him, a human wasting money on trash. He must be blind. Or maybe humans are as weak as she is. But the human gave no answer. He kept walking, his hand still firm on the girl's shoulder. The little alien girl peeked out from under his cloak, her wide silver eyes darting nervously. She had seen many faces in her short life, cruel, greedy, mocking. But this face was different, calm, quiet, strong. She wanted to ask again why, but her throat closed with fear. Near the exit, the group of rough-looking aliens blocked their way. Their leader, a tall brute with horns like twisted steel, sneered. "Human," he growled, "you've made a mistake. That thing is cursed. Leave her with us, and maybe we'll let you go." The human stopped. His silence pressed against the air like a heavy stone. He didn't argue, didn't shout, didn't even move. He simply stood, eyes locked on the horned alien. The girl shivered, clutching the edge of his cloak. Her heart pounded. She had seen others freeze in fear before they were beaten. Was this human the same? Would he abandon her now? The horned alien laughed cruelly. "No words, human? Then you're already afraid. Hand her over." Still the human did not speak. But his silence was not weakness. It was something else, like a storm waiting to break. His hand tightened around the cloak, holding the girl closer. The crowd leaned forward, whispering, "Will he fight? Humans can't win against horned ones." Maybe he's just foolish. The horned alien reached out to grab the girl. In that instant, the human moved. A flash of speed, a blur of motion. His fist struck the aliens, arm with bone-cracking force. The horned alien roared, stumbling back, clutching his shattered wrist. The hall gasped. The human stepped forward, his eyes like iron. He still said nothing. He didn't need to. His silence spoke louder than any threat. The other rough aliens hesitated. They had expected an easy target, a weak fool. Instead, they saw a warrior in disguise, a man who fought without wasted words. The girl's breath caught. She stared up at him, stunned. No one had ever defended her. No one had ever struck for her sake. The auctioneer shouted from the stage, desperate to control the chaos. "Enough! The sale is over! Guards, clear the hall!" But the guards hesitated too, unsure whether to challenge the human. His silence, his calm strength, unnerved even them. The horned alien snarled in pain and rage. "This isn't over, human. You'll regret this." He spat on the floor and staggered away, his followers glaring before retreating into the crowd. The human adjusted his cloak around the girl and began walking again, as if nothing had happened. Step by steady step, he moved toward the exit. The girl whispered, her voice trembling but curious. Why don't you speak? Why don't you tell them why you took me?" The human glanced down at her, his face still calm. For a moment, she thought he might answer, but then he looked forward again, silent. The girl frowned softly. Yet strangely, she felt safer in that silence than she ever had with all the shouting, laughing voices of others. They left the auction hall. Outside, the night air of Korath Prime was thick with smoke and neon lights. Ships roared above the city, and alleys buzzed with the hum of strange machines. But even here, whispers spread fast. The human bought the cursed girl. Madness. He'll be hunted for it. Maybe he's already doomed. The human walked on, ignoring the voices. His silence was like a shield, and the girl stayed close to him. As they reached the darker part of the street, the girl dared to speak again. Her voice was small, almost lost in the noise of the city. "They all laugh at me. They say I'm worthless. You don't laugh. Why? The human paused. He crouched down so his eyes met hers. For a long moment he said nothing. Only the sound of ships echoed in the distance. Finally he spoke. Just one sentence, quiet and firm. Because they don't see what I see. The girl blinked, confused. What? What do you see? But the human stood again and began walking, offering no answer. His silence returned, stronger than before. Behind them, shadows moved in the alleys. Spies had already begun following, sending messages across the city. The human's hand never lowered, his steps never slowed. The girl clung to his cloak, her heart torn between fear and hope. For the first time, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, her fate had changed. The streets of Korath Prime were loud with engines, neon signs flickering like broken stars. But inside the human's cloak, the little alien girl felt the quietest silence she had ever known. His footsteps were steady, each one like a promise. Yet, her heart pounded with doubt. She had been sold before. She had been given to masters who mocked her, starved her, or used her for cruel games. Why should this human be different? Still trembling, she whispered, "You should not have taken me. I bring trouble. Everyone says so." The human said nothing. His face stayed calm, unreadable, eyes scanning the shadows of the alleys. He carried her as if she weighed nothing. They reached a narrow corner where a broken wall shielded them from the busy streets. The human lowered her gently onto a flat stone. She clutched his cloak tightly, afraid he might leave her there. Instead, he crouched and looked at her. His voice was quiet, but steady. "What's your name?" The girl blinked. No one had asked her that in years. She opened her mouth, but the word came out like a secret. "Lyra." The human nodded. "Lyra." He spoke it simply, but it felt different, like the name finally belonged to her again. She studied him, her silver eyes searching for lies. "Why? Why did you buy me? You could have taken anyone. Why me?" The human did not answer. Immediately, he pulled a small flask of water from his belt and held it out. "Drink." Lyra hesitated, then took a sip. The water was cold and clean. It soothed her dry throat. Tears threatened to spill, but she quickly wiped them away. "I am not worth anything," she said softly. They all laughed. They always laugh. "You saw it." The human leaned back, resting against the wall, arms folded. His silence was not cruel this time. It was heavy, like he carried thoughts too large for words. Finally, he spoke. "I saw more than they did." Lyra tilted her head. "What do you mean?" He didn't explain. Instead, he stood and pulled his cloak tighter around her small body. Then, without warning, the sound of footsteps echoed from the alley. 3 shadowy figures appeared, their eyes glowing red in the dim light. Bounty hunters. "There they are," one hissed. "The human with the cursed girl." Lyra froze, fear flooding her chest. "I told you," she whispered, voice shaking. "They will never stop chasing me. You should leave me." The human stepped in front of her, shielding her with his body. His hand went to the weapon at his side, a long blade glowing faintly blue. The hunters laughed. "1 human against 3? Brave, but foolish. Hand her over, and maybe we'll let you live." The human said nothing. His silence was like steel. The first hunter charged. The human moved swiftly, blade flashing in the neon light. With one strike, the attacker fell, groaning on the ground. The other 2 hesitated. Lyra's eyes widened. She had seen warriors before, loud, violent, full of cruelty. But this man fought differently. No anger, no wasted motion, only quiet strength. The second hunter lunged. The human sidestepped, slammed his elbow into the alien's chest and dropped him to the ground. The last one hesitated, then growled. "This is not over, human. The girl is marked. She is death to all who protect her. Then he vanished into the shadows. The human lowered his blade and looked back at Lyra. She sat frozen, trembling, clutching the cloak. He crouched again, meeting her eyes. His voice was firm but calm. "I will not leave you." Her lips parted. No one had ever said those words to her, not once. Her small hands shook as she whispered, "But I am cursed. Everyone who takes me suffers. My people, they are gone. Anyone near me dies." The human's gaze did not waver. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Then let me suffer, not you." Tears finally spilled down her cheeks. She had tried so hard to stay strong, to never show weakness in front of her captors. But here, with this strange, silent human, her walls broke. She buried her face against his cloak and sobbed quietly. For the first time, someone had chosen her. Not for money, not for cruelty, but because he saw something she could not see in herself. The bond was small, fragile, but real. The human did not push her away. He let her cry, his silent presence stronger than any promise. When her tears finally slowed, he lifted her into his arms again. "We need to move. More will come." Lyra nodded, weakly, resting her head against his shoulder. For the first time in years, she allowed herself a tiny spark of hope. As they disappeared into the neon-lit streets, whispers followed in the dark. "The cursed girl has found a protector. A human who does not fear death. This will bring war." But in that moment, Lyra did not care about war or curses or the galaxy that laughed at her. For the first time, she felt safe, and for the first time, she believed she might not be alone anymore. The night on Korath Prime was restless. Neon signs buzzed, smoke curled through the streets, and the whispers of what had happened inside the auction hall spread like fire. A human had bought the cursed girl. A human had defied the laughter of the galaxy. Now, in a dark alley, the human walked quickly with the small girl in his arms. Lyra clung to his cloak, her wide silver eyes darting nervously at every shadow. She whispered, "They will come again. They always do. You should leave me." The human didn't answer. His silence had become his shield, and she didn't know if it meant strength or foolishness. They reached a rusted gate that led into an abandoned storage yard. He pushed it open, checked the corners, and finally set her down on a broken crate. For a brief moment, there was peace. But Lyra's hands trembled. "You don't understand," she said. "I am not safe to keep. Those hunters, they were only the first. Others will follow, stronger ones." The human crouched in front of her. His eyes, calm but sharp, met hers. He finally spoke. "I understand." Her lips parted. She had not expected that answer. Then why? Why not walk away now? Before he could respond, the gate creaked open. Figures slipped inside, armed aliens, their weapons glowing faintly. They had been tracking them. The leader, tall with spines running down his back, pointed a blade toward Lyra. "Human, you made a mistake. That girl is marked. Hand her over and maybe we'll let you live." The human rose slowly, placing himself between Lyra and the intruders. His hand rested on the hilt of his glowing blade. "You don't understand," the spined alien growled. "She brings only ruin. Protecting her is death." The human said nothing. His silence was heavier than their threats. The attackers moved in. The first swung his staff. The human ducked low, swept his leg out, and knocked the alien flat. Another came from the side, blade raised. The human's sword flashed blue in the dark, and the attacker's weapon clattered to the ground. Lyra gasped, clutching her chest. She had seen many fights before, but none like this. Most warriors roared, cursed, and shouted their strength. This human fought like flowing water, silent, steady, unstoppable. Still the enemies pressed on. Two more rushed him together. The human blocked one strike, twisted, and sent the second crashing into the dirt. The spined leader snarled, stepping forward. "You can't fight the whole galaxy, human. She is a burden that will drag you to your grave." The human's blade pointed directly at him, his voice calm but cold. Then let the galaxy come. His words cut through the night like steel. Even the attackers hesitated. For the first time, doubt flickered in their eyes. The spined alien spat, retreating a step. Fool, she will be your end. He signaled his warriors, and they pulled back into the shadows, vanishing into the city. Silence returned. Only the hum of distant engines filled the air. The human lowered his weapon and turned to Lyra. She was shaking, staring at him as if she had seen something impossible. You really mean it, she whispered. You will fight them all. For me. He sheathed his blade and knelt again so that his eyes met hers. I chose you, he said simply. Her heart twisted. For so long she had been told she was a curse, a burden, something to throw away. And now this human spoke as if she was a choice worth making. Tears welled in her eyes. But you don't know the truth. You don't know what I am. The human tilted his head slightly, waiting. I am the last of my kind, she whispered. My people were hunted to extinction because of me. I carry a curse. Anyone who protects me dies. That is why they laughed at the auction. That is why no one raised their hand. Her small shoulders shook. You should have left me in that cage, at least then I would not bring death to you. The human reached out and placed his hand gently on her trembling one. His voice was firm, unshaken. Every life brings death to someone, but you, he looked into her silver eyes, you bring hope. Her tears fell freely now. She had never heard such words. Hope. A word she thought had died with her people. She clung to his hand as if it was the only thing keeping her alive. The bond between them grew stronger in that moment. Not of master and servant, not of buyer and bought. Something deeper, something fragile but unbreakable. From the shadows beyond the wall, spies watched silently. They whispered into their comms. The human has refused to give her up. He has chosen her. Send word to the others. The hunt begins. Above the city, ships stirred. Factions that had once ignored the girl now turned their eyes toward her. The human's choice had lit a fire that could not be put out. But in that abandoned yard, Lyra leaned against him, her eyes heavy with exhaustion, her tears drying on her cheeks. For the first time, she allowed herself to rest in another's arms. The human held her close, his face calm, his silence stronger than any wall. And though the galaxy was already moving against them, his choice was made. He would not let her go. The night air on Korath Prime was thick with smoke and whispers. From the abandoned yard, the human led Lyra through the side streets, careful and silent. His hand rested on his blade, his cloak wrapped tight around the trembling girl. For a while, they walked without speaking. Lyra kept glancing at him, her thoughts tangled. He had fought for her. He had chosen her. But he still did not know everything. At last, she whispered, Human, you deserve to know the truth. He slowed, watching her with calm eyes. She swallowed, hard. I am not only cursed, I was a princess. The human stopped. Neon light flickered across his scarred face, but his expression did not change. My people were called the Illyrians. She continued, her voice shaking. We were, once many, spread across stars. But enemies feared us. They said we carried a power that should not exist. They destroyed our worlds one by one until nothing was left. Nothing, except me. Her hands trembled as she pulled the cloak tighter. The prophecy says the last Illyrian will bring ruin to whoever stands beside her. Armies will rise. Blood will fall. That is why no one wanted me. That is why they laughed. She lowered her head, tears slipping down her silver cheeks. And now you will be hunted too. Because of me. For a long moment, the human said nothing. He looked out over the neon city, the roar of ships above, the shadows moving in the alleys. Then finally, his voice broke the silence. Let them hunt. Her eyes widened. You don't understand. Entire empires fell because of my kind. I understand, he said firmly. And still I chose you. Her breath caught. The simple words struck deeper than any speech. Before she could answer, movement stirred around them. Figures stepped. From the shadows. Spies, mercenaries, their weapons gleaming. Their voices hissed in the dark. There she is. The last Illyrian, the cursed princess, and the fool who protects her. Lyra's heart froze. She had feared this moment since the auction. Hunters from different factions, some for money, others for revenge, had found them. The human shifted, placing himself in front of her. His blade hummed faintly as he drew it. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. The mercenaries advanced. "Hand her over, human. You can't stop all of us. This is bigger than you. Bigger than one girl." The human's silence returned, heavy as stone. He raised his sword. The first attacker lunged. With a swift motion, the human deflected the strike and sent the alien crashing into the wall. Another came from the left. His blade slashed blue in the dark, disarming the foe in a single strike. But more poured in. Lyra clutched the cloak, trembling. She could feel the energy in her veins, the same cursed power that had doomed her people. She whispered to herself, "Not again. Not again." The human fought fiercely, but the hunters kept coming. Blades clashed, sparks lit the night, and shouts echoed in the alley. Then one mercenary slipped past him, lunging toward Lyra. She gasped, falling back. In that desperate moment, something inside her awakened. Her eyes glowed bright silver. A pulse of energy burst from her small body, slamming into the attacker like a storm. He flew backward, crashing into the others. Silence followed. Every mercenary froze, staring at her in fear. "The power," one whispered. "It's true. She carries it." The human turned, his eyes meeting hers. He saw the faint glow fading from her skin, the tears spilling down her face. "This is why they call me cursed," she sobbed. "I cannot control it. Anyone near me suffers." But instead of fear, the human's expression remained steady. He stepped closer, crouched, and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You are not a curse," he said firmly. "You are a weapon. They fear. And weapons are not evil, only those who use them." Her breath caught. His words felt like light piercing the endless darkness she carried. The mercenaries, shaken by what they had seen, began to retreat. "We'll be back." One spat. "The galaxy won't let her live." Then they vanished into the night. The human sheathed his blade and lifted Lyra gently. She clung to him, her body shaking from the burst of power. "Rest," he said quietly. "But," she whispered, "the prophecy." He interrupted, his voice calm and certain. "Prophecies are words, choices are real, and I have made mine." Her tears fell onto his cloak. For the first time, she let herself believe he truly meant it. Above them, ships streaked across the sky. In hidden places, leaders of alien factions received the message. The human has taken the Illyrian girl. She has awakened her power. Armies would soon march. Hunters would soon gather. The galaxy was already stirring against them. But in that broken yard under the flickering neon lights, the cursed girl and the silent human shared a bond stronger than fear. The hidden truth was now revealed. And their journey had only just begun. The night on Korath Prime no longer belonged to ordinary citizens. It belonged to hunters. Word had spread like lightning. The cursed Illyrian princess had awakened her power, and a human had claimed her. Every shadow seemed to whisper their names. Every flicker of neon hid enemies. The human led Lyra quickly through the back streets, keeping his hand on his blade. She clung to his cloak, her silver eyes wide with fear. "They won't stop," she whispered. "Not until we're both gone." He looked down at her, calm as ever. "Then we leave this world." Before dawn, he guided her to a forgotten hangar at the edge of the city. Inside, under torn sheets of metal and dust, rested an old starship. Its hull was scratched, its engines scarred, but the human moved with confidence, as if this was not the first time he had hidden it here. Lyra stared at the battered vessel. Can this really fly? The human gave a small nod. It only needs to fly faster than them. She almost smiled despite her fear. The engines roared to life with a painful groan. Lights flickered, controls hissed, but the ship lifted slowly, trembling as it rose. Lyra gripped the seat beside him, her heart racing. Then the scanners beeped. Dozens of signals appeared. Ships were launching from the city, hunting them already. Her chest tightened. They've found us. The human's hands moved steadily across the controls, adjusting thrusters, pushing the ship higher. He did not panic. His silence was stronger than her fear. The hangar roof split open, and the ship shot into the night sky. Neon lights vanished. Beneath them, replaced by the endless black of space. For a moment, Lyra felt hope. But then the stars filled with shadows. Enemy vessels emerged all around, their weapons glowing like fireflies of death. A voice crackled over the comms. Human, surrender the Illyrian girl. Do so and we may spare your life. The human flipped the comms off without a word. His eyes stayed on the flight path. The enemy ships opened fire. Red beams sliced through the dark. The human jerked the controls, sending the old starship spinning through the storm. Lyra screamed and clutched the seat, her small body shaking. But the human moved with precision. Each twist, each dive, each burn of the thrusters was exact. He flew the broken ship as though it were part of him. One enemy fighter closed in. He flipped a switch, and the ship's rear cannon burst to life, blasting the attacker into sparks. Another came from the left, but he rolled sharply, scraping by so close Lyra swore she could see the pilot's face. Her breath came fast, her hands gripping tighter. Yet, through the fear, she found herself staring at him. His jaw was set, his eyes sharp, his silence unshaken even as death reigned all around them. You're not afraid, she whispered. Fear wastes time, he said simply, guiding the ship into a narrow asteroid field. Enemy ships followed, but the rocks tore their formation apart. The human wove through the floating giants with skill, engines screaming as sparks flew off the hull. Lyra gasped. No one can fly like this. He glanced at her only briefly, and for the first time she saw the faintest hint of a smile on his lips. Behind them, two enemy ships collided with an asteroid, exploding in bright fire. The others pressed on, but fewer now. Still, the odds were against them. The ship rattled, alarms blaring. Shields failing, the system warned in a cold voice. Lyra's hands trembled. We can't outrun them forever. The human's eyes narrowed. Then we fight. He flipped another switch, revealing hidden cannons under the old ship's wings. They blazed to life, spitting fire at the pursuers. Explosions lit the darkness as more enemy ships fell, but for every one destroyed, two more appeared. The galaxy had already united against them. One blast struck their hull. Sparks showered inside, smoke filling the cabin. Lyra coughed, fear gripping her. She whispered almost to herself, maybe they were right. Maybe I only bring death. The human reached across the seat, his hand steady on hers. She froze, staring at his scarred fingers holding her trembling ones. His voice was calm, certain. No. You bring purpose. Her breath caught. In the middle of fire and chaos, his words wrapped around her like a shield. The ship lurched again, but he held the controls firm. With one last push, he dived deep into the asteroid field, guiding the vessel into a hidden crack between two massive stones. The enemy ships swept past, unable to follow without tearing themselves apart. For a moment, silence returned. Only the hum of damaged engines filled the air. Lyra let out a shaky breath, realizing she was still alive. She turned to him, tears in her glowing eyes. Why do you keep saving me? You don't even know me. The human looked at her, his gaze steady. I don't need to know you. I only need to know the choice I made. Her lips trembled. For the first time, she allowed herself to smile, just a little. Outside, enemy fleets regrouped, their signals flooding the scanners. The chase was not over. It had only begun. But as the old ship limped deeper into the stars, Lyra leaned against him, her trust slowly forming. For the first time in her life, she believed someone might stand with her until the end. And for the first time, the human let his hand rest on hers without pulling away. The old starship limped through the void, its engines groaning, its hull scarred by the chase. Lyra sat in silence, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. She could feel the weight of the galaxy pressing down on them. Armies were moving. Hunters were gathering. All because of her. She turned to the human. He sat at the controls, steady as stone, his scarred hands guiding the broken ship forward. His silence was unshaken, even as alarms blinked red across the dashboard. At last she whispered, "You don't have to keep this promise. You don't have to fight the whole galaxy for me." The human's gaze stayed on the stars. "I raised my hand for you," he said quietly, "and I will never put it down." Her chest tightened. His words were simple, yet they struck like thunder. Before she could answer, the scanners screamed. Dozens of signals flared. An enemy fleet blocked their path. Warships with weapons glowing. Like suns, their shadows stretching across the stars. Lyra gasped. There are too many. The human tightened his grip on the controls. Then we stand. The enemy ships opened fire. The void lit up with burning light. The human rolled the vessel, weaving through the storm. But their ship was old, too damaged to outrun the fleet. A blast tore across their hull. Sparks flew. Lyra screamed, clutching her seat. She felt it again, that cursed energy inside her. It burned through her veins, begging to be released. She looked at him, trembling. "If I use it, I might destroy everything." He glanced at her, his eyes steady, his silence strong. Then he nodded. "Then we use it together." Her heart pounded. No one had ever spoken those words. Not use her power, share it. She closed her eyes, reaching deep within. The silver glow spread across her skin, brighter, stronger than before. She placed her trembling hand on his arm. The human did not flinch. He accepted the burning light as if it were his own. The ship shook violently as enemy fire struck again. But then, something changed. The glow from Lyra's body spread into the ship itself. The old engines roared louder, brighter. The hull shimmered, with a strange silver aura. The human gripped the controls, and for the first time the ship moved like a living thing. Faster, sharper, stronger. They charged forward. Enemy vessels swarmed. But the human flew with impossible precision, his movements guided by her energy. Cannons blazed, wings cut through fire, and enemy after enemy fell in bursts of flame. Lyra gasped, her eyes wide with awe. "You're using my power." He shook his head slightly. "No, we are." Together they tore through the fleet. Ships that had once looked invincible shattered before them. The hunters who had laughed at her now screamed in fear. Still, the enemy pressed harder. Warships surrounded them, closing in for the final strike. Lyra trembled, exhaustion burning in her chest. "I can't hold it much longer." The human's voice was calm, certain. "Then we end it now." He pushed the ship straight toward the largest warship at the center of the fleet. Enemy fire blazed from all sides, but the silver glow shielded them. Lyra's power flowing through every piece of metal. The warship loomed like a mountain, weapons glowing to strike. "Trust me," the human said. She gripped his arm tighter, tears in her eyes. "I do." Together they unleashed everything. The ship became a streak of silver light piercing through the enemy vessel. Explosions erupted, fire tore across the void, and the great warship split apart. The shockwave blasted the fleet, scattering the hunters, tearing their formation apart. Silence followed, broken only by the crackle of burning wreckage drifting through space. Inside the cockpit, smoke filled the air. The ship was barely holding together, systems failing. But they were alive. Lyra leaned weakly against him, her body trembling from the power she had poured out. Her silver glow faded, leaving her pale and exhausted. I thought I would kill everyone near me. But you, her voice broke, soft with wonder. You turned my curse into something else. The human looked at her, his face calm but his eyes softer than she had ever seen. It was never a curse, it was only waiting for someone to believe. Tears slipped down her cheeks, but this time they were not only from sorrow. They carried hope. The galaxy would still come. Armies would still march. But she was no longer alone. The human adjusted his cloak around her small frame, his scarred hand never letting go. His voice, quiet but unshaken, echoed like a promise to the stars. When I raised my hand for you, I swore I would never put it down. Not for laughter, not for curses, not even for the galaxy itself. Outside the shattered battlefield, the wreckage of enemy ships drifted silently, and in the distance stars shone brighter, as if the universe itself bore witness. No one laughed anymore.